So, I just got a message from a friend on here who was worried, about the whole dealing with that guy, Massacre Flats, hanging out with a dark energy and all that. He's gone now, by the way. But as I was writing back to her, and as I was writing back and talking about how a lot of times, ghosty spirits, people, they're people. They show up in your space, and you can oftentimes connect with them specifically because there's some emotional vibration in you that is on the same frequency as them. And even though, he felt guilty for very several things, a lot of the process of crossing over, apparently, as I'm now learning, is that they need to do something, especially when they're in a position of feeling guilty and stuck in their own hell. They need to do something for the living person, in a sense of helping them discover something about themselves that they also need to release in order to raise their vibration enough that they can then leave this plane. And as I was piecing it together, I was like, the timing of it was super weird because the dread happened, the cloud, it got all cloudy, the butterflies all went away, it started raining. I heard the bleating of the sheep, which was that creeped me out. And I was seeing a dark shadow in the corner of with it wearing a sharp hat, very sharp, like brim, probably 1846 era, I would imagine. Very dark, yeah. And then that night, and I was like, I should leave. I kept feeling like I should leave. And that night was when I was sitting here with the door closed, and that guy came over with a flashlight, like trying to shine it in my door, and was asking the girl, whoever was parked next to me, "Hey, are you alone?" And she's all, "No," and then drove off. And her reaction to him made me think that wasn't a cop. That was just a regular guy or somebody trying to fake being a cop. You know what I mean? Because her reaction to him was very much like, "No, creepy dude." And that's such a weird question for a cop to ask a random woman at a park. "Hey, are you alone?" I mean, that's not really a very cop-like question right off the bat like that. And then when I pulled up the door thinking it was a cop because he had that spotlight and he was shining it all over the fucking park and shit, back and forth, and there was no one else there except me, back and forth, like he's looking for somebody wandering around the woods or something. And as I was initially assuming he was a cop and about to go outside, rolled up my door to go deal with this fucking shit, I instantly got the impression this could just be a random weird dude with a big spotlight. Right? And then I was like, yeah, that's true, because he did just ask this woman like a weird question. And so I kind of stood there and was peeking out the side, and he couldn't see me looking at over there. And it wasn't a cop car. It was some like pickup truck or something, and with this big giant spotlight shining it back and forth. And that's when I was like, oh, I'm just going to not deal with that guy. And I was like, when the wind comes, I'll pull the door back down. And the wind came, and then I pulled the door back down, and I sat here really quiet, and the candle turned unlit itself. Like the candle just went out for some reason. And there's a pretty good chance, having conversed with as many ghosty ghosts as I have now in these last 10, 15 years of seemingly doing this unbeknownst to me skill, that he could have been the one telling me, don't go out there and talk to that guy, because he needs me to be alive to cross him over. So it's in his best interest to keep me alive for that, and also to scare me away from that park as well, which is why I was like feeling like I should go. So, even though energies look really dark and foreboding, a lot of times they look that way at first because you're afraid of them on some level, and that's what makes them look darker. But as I kind of got used to that feeling of him being around and going, okay, what is it? What else do I need to do to release you? Like, it still kind of felt attached a little bit too much. But then as he did finally go, he was a lot lighter. He was nowhere near as dark. which meant his vibration was raising and he was able to then just go, because he could see the door. Because a lot of times when people feel so guilty, they don't allow themselves to see their way out. It's the same thing when you're living. If you don't allow good things to come into your life because you don't think you deserve it, you're never going to see the door of the way out. You have to be on some level open to receiving help from outside. And I know what that's like. It's very hard to receive help sometimes from other people. It's very difficult if you've been, pummeled into believing that you don't deserve any help. So all of this totally makes sense to me now. I was like, oh my God, yeah, dude. Like, because I don't know, it's just so weird how it's the timing. It's always about the timing. It's always timing. Timing will clue you into so many things because, bomb threats that happen at the same time as G7 summits, timing. It's always about timing. Whenever the things happen at certain times, you're always like, oh. Same reason why when I was walking Sadie today up to the top of Twin Peaks, and we were standing on that hill, as we came down, I kind of took a wrong turn, went by this little school, and there were these guys hanging out up there in these big, ugly ass looking trucks with like skulls painted on them and shit, And this guy was coming down out of the woods as well, and it just looked, he just had this energy of no good intentions were around this person at all. And I just got this really creepy feeling. So I took a note of his Arizona license plate. And I was just like, and there's a school right there. And, there were 3 separate events at 3 separate cities during Pride celebrations and Pride parades where people were shooting off fireworks just to freak people out so that they would stampede and panic. And it totally made sense to me that, this school up in Twin Peaks at the top of the Castro, right next to the giant pink triangle, that's been lit for a month, would be the perfect place for him to take his AR-15 from Arizona. So I just kind of went back and forth. And I kept feeling like I was in I seriously felt like I was in a sniper's range right there. I was just like, I feel like there's a crosshair on me right now. And I was like, come on, fucker, come on. I'm not scared of you, bitch. Go ahead, shoot me. Like, I just was like super angry about that. And then I heard this guy screaming at the school, cease fire, like a grown adult screaming that. Now, I don't know if he was trying to teach the kids some weird lesson they need to learn on how to deal, just in case there's a shooter in their school, which would not surprise me at all that they're now putting this in the curriculum, But the whole thing, the timing of the whole thing was super weird. So I haven't heard any gunshots. I'm just down the street, keeping an ear open. But yeah, I have license plate numbers if I need to, It's just so creepy that people would have that kind of intention to drive that far away to, just, it literally feels like dudes are just trying to one-up each other on how fucking gnarly and stupid they can be, and with their, like, senseless violence, Just saying. So yeah. I'm usually in a good mood because then I'm at a higher vibration, and in that way I can then receive those kinds of messages and signals from the woo-woo witchy wonder sphere. Because if I'm depressed and I'm like staring at the ground, I am not paying any attention to my surroundings at all. I'm just like, nothing can get in. So I'm of greater service to humanity as a whole if I'm in a higher vibration, as it were, so that I can like receive that kind of information. But yeah, it was gnarly. Super gnarly. But I also didn't want to go putting it in the field, so I just walked really slowly with Sadie back and forth. Kind of listened and took as many notes, mental notes, and as I could of the scenario, because I'm sure every school is on high alert right now, as they have been since freaking Columbine, you know what I mean? all these huge steps backwards this country seems to be taking. On one hand, I want to just get a passport and get the hell out of here, which is proving to be extremely hard to get out, which is a little bit frightening as well. The fact that they're trying to make everything illegal, including anal sex, like, ugh. Like, why are you trying to make that illegal? What is that to you? You know what I mean? Like, what do you care how people do it? You know what I mean? Like, it's none of your fucking business, asshole Congress, asshole Supreme Court. That's none of your fucking business how people want to fuck each other. You know? And of course, I feel like the whole abortion thing is just so that they can have more unwanted infants available for their own pedophile friggin' sex parties, which I would not put it past any older rich white man to be a part of that. Would you? You know, like, why else would you be so fascinated with having all these unwanted infants around? You don't give a fuck about the people. You just want something to stick your tiny pee-pee into. I hate to, you know, say that all power is really just to base it down to that level of the dick. But, yeah. Like, this is why women should just be running everything. I mean, even Buckminster Fuller said in a great quote that if you want to save humanity, you need to let women run the shit, because they need to be they need to be running the government. They need to be in control and making their laws and doing all this stuff, because they have more of a nurturing, communicating instead of shooting sort of approach to relationships, other people, issues, etc., etc., etc. And then men can just stay in their caves and play video games and do all the fun things that they always wanted to do in their little hobby huts, and just let us run the shit. Yeah, because that's really what it's all about. I don't see why you would have a problem with that. You got sex robots now. You can just go hang out in your man cave and have sex with your sex robot, play all your video games, and just let women run the show, because you know, everyone would just be happier in the long run. It's just a suggestion. From Buckminster Fuller, mind you. Yeah, I didn't say that. He said that. It's just an idea. You know, maybe in about another 100 years, you'll finally get around to seeing the sense behind that. I sure hope so. I know I won't be here to see it, but, you know, as long as, you know, if I do actually have booby cancer right now, I was thinking, you know, of all the ways to die, I'm so okay with dying that way. As long as I don't die of a fucking drug overdose, or I don't die from suicide, or I don't die from murder, I'm happy. So, just gonna put that out there into the ethersphere. You know, I can deal with it. It's no big deal. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but it's also, I also don't mind the idea of having it lopped off, so I've only got one. You know, it's fine with me. Put some tattoos over where the scars are, you know what I mean? I'm fine with all that shit. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to live the best life that I can for the few remaining days that I may have on this planet, you know? And so if I seem a little bit too happy for you, you know, you'll get there. When you're 50, you'll understand. we have a whole different set of like energy levels and bandwidth for drama. Our bandwidth for drama is severely lowered post menopause. Like, we just do not put up with the same kind of shit anymore once we're older. You know, who's got time and energy for that shit? Because we've learned enough about the emotional trauma that was stuck in my knees, which was giving me arthritis for months and months and months. Like, so painful to even walk anywhere at all. That pain was an emotion of having your efforts unreceived. Like, putting all this effort into something that doesn't produce a result. And both of my knees would flare up every time I'd feel that way about something, about working really hard on something that wasn't going to, you know, produce any fruit, as it were. So when you've gone through that kind of feeling enough, you get a little bit better at knowing where to focus your energy, where to put your time, and where, you know, where your boundaries need to be. And so, you know, don't disparage people that are coping in different ways than you are. And just keep an eye out for people that are not coping and instead want to take it out on the rest of the world by shooting a bunch of kids for no fucking reason. Yeah. Since clearly the government isn't interested in, like, not having people have guns everywhere. I was going to tell you the story, the ghost story about John. I was started telling you that yesterday, but then I had this conversation with the blind woman that was over in the park, and she started talking about some of her trauma that she got from nuns and the school that she was at in South Africa, and I just felt like that was way too personal. I was like, I got involved in the conversation. I was like, oh, this is recording. Oh shit! But I didn't want to say, oh wait, I'm recording. You know what I mean? And I didn't, so I just deleted it because I was not really. That's kind of an invasion for privacy, I think, on some level. Don't you? I mean, I didn't ask her permission to be just recording her while she's telling me all these stories of her childhood, so I thought it was a bit too much, so I just deleted it. But I started to tell you the story about John, the guy who hung himself. One of the most difficult, dark, heavy presences I've ever come into contact with. And even as that story turned out, the reason I could feel him so clearly was because betrayal. But I'm feeling a little bit too frenetic right now because of the present time to like go back into 1921 right now. So it's pretty cool, though. It is pretty cool, you know, that people forever have been people. For 200,000 years, we've been the same kind of people with the same kinds of emotions and the same kinds of problems. So society's changed, but people essentially, you know, we're just trying to evolve. That's all we're trying to do. And sometimes that takes a while. So don't be surprised if things get a little gnarly now that it's age of the Aquarius and the divine feminine is returning to rebalance and reclaim her rightful place. Not in competition, but in equality. Is it okay with you? And, yeah. And wear orange for Cancel Canada. Because I've been by some of those mass graves of Indigenous children that were buried outside of schools. One of the ones in Montana that I drove by, I took all these pictures. It was an assimilation school. Because I mean, you could just feel kids running around all over the place over there. It was just so sad. So, yeah. I'm just so glad that these things are being brought to light. You know, it's a time of illumination. It's a time when you're not going to be, you know, dudes aren't going to be able to get away with like sexually traumatizing 50 to 150 girls and then just pretend nothing ever happened and then get away with it. Thank fuck. It's like we've had enough of that. You know what I mean? Fucking hell. Anyway, super glad that people are like R. Kelly and Ghislaine are being, you know, instead of just put on probation and allowed to run around free and do whatever the fuck they want to do. So yeah, it's good. Reclamation, rebalancing. Every time I see a dandelion on the ground for this entire spring, I've been picking it up and spreading the seeds, and every time I spread the seeds, I just keep in mind of the feeling that it's going to feel like. For the word sums it up best would be reparations. Every time I spread dandelion seeds, reparations. I've been spreading thousands of seeds of reparations, like for at least 4 months now. I love these long-term rituals. Are super awesome when you do this one little thing every day. Like now I have like 150 little things that I do every day. But you don't realize, like, when you're doing that little thing that only takes a second, like, it's just a little thing you do in a second. But when you think about it, when you look back on it, you know, 5 years from now, you'd be like, it all piles up into a big hill. A mountain of reparations. Yes, queen!